How's the snow?
We're doing okay. We had a couple inches of snow, but a lot of rain and sleet, and been kind of nasty out there.
Okay. Right. So, what are we going to do?
Well, I called you because we're supposed to be having this conversation about conversations.
Right. Well, what I can do is talk to you about what I think is important, and if I just give you some headings, maybe that will remind you of. I've just jotted on a piece of paper here some headings for myself. So if I just list them and then we can talk about them. The title of the book is called, now at the moment, it's called Live Well, Live Blessed. And the source of that is, are you familiar with the Message Bible, Eugene Peterson?
The Message, yes.
Well, he did it. Eugene Peterson's the author. And in the account of, I'm thinking of the way in which healing is, really important in all this. And in his account of the healing of the woman who'd had a hemorrhage for many years, when she's been healed, Jesus says to her, he commends her faith, and then he says, live well, live blessed. So I just thought that was a kind of good lead into this, because it's important as well to say that this isn't anything at all about a prosperity gospel. That, if you're feeling blessed, you'll be very well off and secure and all the rest of it. I don't know how big an issue that is.
Well, it varies with different people.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it's important to know that's not what this is about, anyway. Just off to see him on. I also talked about blessing as very much, an interaction between God and creation and us, between us and one another. So it's not a kind of linear thing that goes on a single trackway. It's more like an ecology, or maybe even a labyrinth. I don't know. It's kind of it's a movement around, and so being blessed is to be part of a movement of receiving blessing and giving blessing, almost unpredictably. I'm using appreciative inquiry. Well, on page 16 in the full text, have you got that there? There is, page 16. There's a list at the bottom of page 16, going over to 17, of the benefits of appreciative inquiry. And it's all about words creating worlds, inquiry creating change, and then there are kind of four things at the end of that. It creates a culture of discovery, conceiving, designing, improving. Makes the suggestion that what you choose to inquire about is going to shape your community.
Okay.
I think I'm also making a big distinction between discussion and conversation. I probably made that point when I was over before. Discussion from the Latin discutio, to cut the other person to shreds. So we're having discussions so that you'll know you're wrong and I'm right.
Yes.
I mean, sometimes there's a place, isn't there, for making judgments and decisions, but actually there's something much more. It's a good antidote, I think, to be listening deeply to people and appreciating where they're coming from and what they're saying, and asking them questions which draw them out even more. And it says in the book somewhere, genuine questions, not questions which are wrapped up as advice wrapped up as questions. Mm-hmm. Like, had you not thought of doing it like I do it?
Yeah.
I think also on pages 1 and 2 there's a bit more about the future of inquiry. There's a little list of bullet points on page 1, about a third of the way down. There's a place to talk with rather than be talked at. A place to talk together about God, about God's ways in the world. So it's very much about how vulnerable people can be with each other, which means that people who don't feel very confident will have to be kind of coaxed into speaking, perhaps. And part of the role of the companion is to make sure that nobody talks to 90% of the time. Mm-hmm. So I think, again, the role of the companion is very key here, because there are three things going on at once. There's trying to make decisions about which bit of the material to use in the study guide, in the middle bit.
Yeah.
And recognising that people have turned up because they want to work on that. But there's two other things going on as well. There's the individual's need to grow in faith and to be respected, and there's the relationship, the dynamic between everybody who's there. So that the task of a companion is to be able to somehow hold those three things in a working tension. I mean, an obvious example would be if you're just about to start and then Fred arrives late, having just bumped his car into your fence. You couldn't just ignore that. There would need to be some conversation about that. But if you spent the next hour and a half lamenting with Fred about his bumper and your fence, people would feel a bit that they've been shortchanged. And you could run that round the other two things. If it was all just a cosy, friendly, mutual support group, and you didn't do any work, that would, you can see what I mean. I think you can tease people into recognising that. There's a fourth bit as well, actually, which you know about as well. If you're running a group and conversations get going, and somebody says something you hadn't thought of it, or it comes completely off the wall, that might be something which is really important of the Spirit, and it needs to be followed up, even though it's not part of the written course. Mm-hmm. But again, if you went so far with that you lost track, that would be a shame too. So I think the point I'm making is that it's not like a course you can buy, which is simply to teach people about the Bible or teach people about the Trinity or whatever. See, if you couldn't just pick it up at 6:30 of an evening and rush off to a meeting and say, well, we're on page 5. That's why there needs to be a host who is actually going to make sure that it's comfortable and there's refreshments and the chairs are laid out well and it's the right temperature. But on the other hand, the facilitator, or companion as I've called them, has somehow got that other, that task of creating a space, where everybody can be respected. And it is about encounter, it's about meeting each other, meeting God, and, being a blessing, or receiving blessing in order to be a blessing to the community. I mean, that's what the research is largely about, saying so many churches are sorry for themselves because their glory days have gone. They're short of money, they haven't enough clergy. It's like winter time for the church in a sense. But actually, if you ain't got any good news, nobody's going to come anyway. And if it's not good news for you, it won't be for anybody else either.
That's true.
So there are three parts to the main book, as you know. The middle part, which is the section for the actual group meetings in Lent, part 1 explains the theory, and then part 3 is saying, you really ought to do this more often, here are some ideas for doing it in the future. But part 2 is actually what most people will use. So I guess it's good if they only have the simple bit, but I think anybody who's going to be a companion needs to have read the whole thing and they got the concept, so that they don't feel defensive about it, but feel evangelical about it, because it's actually something like giving new heart. It's a bit like John Wesley, I suppose, really inviting people to be more open to God, more open to each other. We talked about his heart being strangely warmed, and I guess Luther was onto something similar in his own way. And of course, so was Jesus, actually, by coincidence. I mean, that was the whole row with the church leaders, really, wasn't it? They were saying, well, we've got all this sewn up. We know how to do religion. Here's the books, here's the building. We've got the right clothes, just do as we say. But it wasn't actually alive. And I suppose, well, who was it? The sociologist Weber talked about the routinization of charisma. Something which is alive and fresh in one generation, if you simply repeat it in a different time and context, it goes stale, and you're not really offering people bread. So that's why the Lectio Divina is important, because it's rediscovering that dynamic way of reading Scripture, which contradicts the old method of having somebody who is either an expert or pretends to be an expert by preparing for a Bible study, and then people turn up and passively and appreciatively receive everything said. But actually, it's the value of Lectio is actually that everybody can have a word, can say something, and it's actually holistic. I think you understand that, don't you? So
yeah.
The important thing, I think, is for the people who are allowing for that, is to really allow for silence. So somebody reads. I think you need the passage on a piece of paper in slightly larger font than usual, so that it's there in front of people, rather than trying to find it in one person's Bible. Everybody needs to have a copy of it. And you read it once, and then you have a time of quiet while people ponder it, and you invite them on their own to choose a word or a phrase that stands out for them today. And then somebody reads it again. That's why it doesn't need to be very long. And then they turn just to one person or two people around them and say, well, actually, the word I've chosen is this one, and the reason why is this. And then after that, you might persuade people to say what they've said to the larger group, but they might not be able to do for the first or second time, but they might gain in confidence. And the companion, then, I think, is allowed the liberty of making connections between what people have said, but not of judging it or saying, well, you shouldn't have said that, or I'm surprised how little you know about the Bible, or on page 11 in the main text, there is a list of suggestions as to how to make it work well. I won't go through those, but if you look at those yourself, and it's like the practicalities, so that it really is an official piece of church business. It's not just a private group. And I think the church council could give to the groups what I call a critical question. It might be how to involve the young people more, or how do we get more involved in the local community or whatever it is. And I've suggested each time they have the conversation that the part of the time is spent on that critical question. But in this, not discussing it, but in the light of this prayer and study and conversation. And that then they can come out of that, out of the series, with something to say to the church council afterwards. And I've sent you an email with the monkey response. You've got that, haven't you, Rich? I sent a group email to everybody, and it had 7 different electronic ways of responding.
Oh, that, yeah.
Yeah.
The survey thing, right.
Because I'm doing it on the cheap and not paying for it, it means that you can only have 100 responses. So that means, I think, that even if a church had more than one group, you'd have to conflate those. But if before it starts, I get a response, and then each of those 5 weeks, and then something afterwards, perhaps just after Easter, that would be fantastic. And I would suggest that if it's possible, that the facilitators get a bit of support halfway through Lent. So you might fix a time when you could have a coffee with them, or ring them or Skype them or something and say, well, how's your group going? What can I do to support you? So they feel that they're not on their own with it for 5 weeks.
I'm writing down a bunch of notes here.
That's great. I mean, I don't think I would. If I had a couple of hours with people, those are the things I'd explore. And what I noticed when I did it this week in Newcastle with some Methodists, lay people, and because Methodism is famous for its class system and for small groups studying, but they were scared. They were really shy of it. It was really sad, really, to find. There were people in their 70s. And they were all women, unfortunately, but, they're willing to have a go. But they really needed to keep asking questions and to be reassured, and we prayed together at the beginning and the end. It's a shame we haven't been able to have a meeting, but maybe you can Skype them as a group or something. Well, there's something about them knowing you and trusting you.
Have they used Skype over there? That group?
Right.
Has that group used Skype at all?
Here? No. 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 I mean, have you got any questions, Rich, from what you've thought about that you want me to talk about?
I was looking through it and trying to identify names for each of the days or each of the conversations, let's put it that way.
Oh, right.
And I found that helpful.
Did you? So could you send me an email with what you thought?
Yeah, well, I was just looking through what you had here in terms of the sections where you have food for the journey. And you get the name and so on at each particular point.
Right.
The one thing I was wondering about is, is there a kind of a itinerary to this journey? Is there kind of a point where you are going from place to place with a deliberate direction, you might say? I can see how it, I can list out the different subjects and so on, but is there an evolution that you have in mind in this?
I think the only evolution really is about their confidence to do that kind of process. Mm-hmm. And hopefully to get them to see how attractive it is. if you in the book, I had a gathering of several of the churches back in September about how they'd found the work I've done with them over the last year. And somewhere in the book there is a page of their comments. I can just see if I can find it. Wait a minute. There's a lot of background noise, isn't there? I'm just trying to find. Oh yeah, I think it's pages 8 and 9, and pages 8 and 9. I've actually got quotations from what people said to me when we had a meeting of all these different groups. Like, there's a personal sense of encouragement now because I know that other people are on the journey with me. It was important that we sat in a circle with no tables to act as a barrier. The relaxed attitude of the conversations made it easy for everyone to talk, especially those who are of a retiring nature. The work we've done has been non-threatening. Everyone's mind was put at rest, even if it came to the group with worries. We're communicating better now. We've got a chance to think more deeply and concentrate the mind. And we're looking forward to what's coming next. And I think that's the important bit. It's a sense of, this is just really, I think we're training people to risk talking together about faith and about God and about the future of their church in its neighbourhood. So that it becomes a habit. It becomes different from the pastor and the leaders or even the church council making decisions and very occasionally having a sort of, away day for keen people. And in fact, what one of the Roman Catholic clergy said on the bottom of page 9, I think is very moving. And of course, I've quoted things that you've said as well. I mean, I'm interested in that idea of progression, because in a sense, like the journey of Moses and the Israelites in the desert, it is a purposeful journey, but it might not be linear.
Yeah.
And the same was true of Cuthbert in Durham. The monks carried Cuthbert's body all over Northumberland before arriving at the cathedral.
Yeah.
And they could have got a bus much quicker.
Yeah. If they had a map, they would have known exactly where to go, right?
So it's something about, the cliche that it's the journey that's the thing. It's not the destination so much. And there's a phrase I've often used, traveller, there are no paths. Paths are made by walking. And of course, different personality types will be attracted to it or less, and that's just the reality. Some people who were trained in maths 30 years ago, won't like it, and they'll find it difficult.
Mathematicians, right?
Well, not a contemporary mathematician, because they're all into quantum field theory and things, but if you really thought that A plus B plus C plus D equals E, that's going to be hard for you, if it doesn't.
Right. Well, that was part of my adjustment to the resource. Just trying to figure out, what is the line that is being traveled here, and
well, it's
look at the process as the main thing. With then, then the steps along the way become.
I suppose it's a bit like Paul's journeys too. Paul's missionary journey. There isn't a sort of sense of a roller coaster of success. There's just moments when things become clear, and there are terrible moments when things are really bad.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, and, if you think of the journey of Jesus around Galilee with the disciples, it's similar. I mean, I don't know how he decided where to go next.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking a lot about that for this Sunday, for example, where in the Gospel, Jesus is starting out his mission.
Yeah.
And I was thinking to myself, what kind of conversation did he have with God as he was about to walk down by the Sea of Galilee and see, Simon and Andrew there tending their nets? I mean, even the question, okay, this is a mission to reach out to the whole world. How big is the world? I mean, just in terms of, in the first century, how much, it's overwhelming.
Imagine yourself having a wander down to the supermarket to say, well, I need 12 people to help with a mission,
Yeah.
But that says something about how, the immense encounter that Jesus offered, which in a sense is why the church can never really get out of a rut, whatever it doesn't offer some kind of turning around experience to people. Because the next Sunday after this is when I'm preaching in Texas, in San Antonio, and the gospel passage there is the Jesus' mother, Simon's mother-in-law.
Oh yeah.
And the kind of the complete chaos in Capernaum with people being healed and everything, what's going on. And then he goes into the quiet of the house there, and there's the woman who's got a fever. And in Mark's Gospel, of course, as you know, I mean, it rather implies that Jesus lifted her up and she was well, and she suddenly realised that she hadn't done any dinner, so she sort of gets on and fixes a meal.
Tea time.
The Greek word, as you know, that's used for serving is only used twice in Mark. And once it's used about Jesus' own mission, and in another occasion it's used of, disciples joining the mission. So I'm very content to imagine that what Mark is really saying was that, she became part of the wider group that made that mission possible. I don't know, they all sent out for pizzas, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm really sorry I can't do this for real with people, but it's just the way it is. Is Kim all right? Are they?
Yeah, it's just one of those days where last year I think we had to postpone 3 or 4 gatherings of clergy because of snow that happened to occur on those particular days. So that was consistent.
And that would have held back the work of the kingdom no end.
Yeah.
So what to say? So how many churches do you think might be having a go at this? Are they getting a bit scared or?
Well, actually, we were. Kim was expecting about 11 or 12 people today.
Oh, that's great.
And she wasn't counting. In that enumeration, she wasn't including me or Pastor Dennis Walker from Comac, who you met. And I was, before the snow forecast, I had someone else I was going to bring along with me. So I would guess maybe 5 or 6 churches.
Yeah,
maybe 1 or 2 more.
So, I mean, if you can emphasise that it'd be good to have the responses, even if they're puzzled responses.
Yeah.
One question that was raised when I spoke in Newcastle was that this booklet here, it's trying to do 2 things at once. It's trying to support the companion, the facilitator, as well as being useful to the punter.
Right.
I can't see how to avoid that, really, given the limitations of a book. So, for example, I mean, a very obvious example that was pointed out to me on page 8 and 9 of the booklet is that, I've given them about 8 suggestions of what they might talk about. Well, I think the companion is going to have to decide beforehand which one to go for.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there'd be absolute chaos at the meeting if you read them all out and said, now which one do you want to talk about?
Yeah.
But a clever facilitator like yourself would say, well, I'm going to go for 3, but if they don't really bite on 3, we'll skip to 6.
Yeah.
Because what we don't want is, is something which just isn't working. And would it help you if you sent me your notes and then I sent them back to you in some way, or would you just work with them?
You mean what I've been writing down now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I can fill that out a little bit more. Mm-hmm. I am recording this, so I'll be able to look back and see what's in the recording as well.
Yes. Okay.
Fill in the blanks, so to speak.
Yeah. So if you could give me a copy of what you eventually send, I'd be grateful.
Yeah.
Because again, you see, that could go in the book, because that would be part of the process of teaching people to use it.
Yeah. I was, I'm planning on seeing the rest of the Western Nassau Conference on Wednesday. They have their monthly ministerium meeting on Wednesday, and I'll be going over there. So I'm sure I'll have 10 or 15 minutes or whatever I need to update them on this kind of stuff. And they may still want to get together with you on Skype. But when are you going to be, back from the U.S.?
Well, I think the 11th is a Wednesday. I'm travelling that day. So the week after that might be possible.
Yeah.
Because I've got 1 or 2 things I have to do that weekend. And it'll take me just a couple of days. Because I'm actually acting as facilitator to the conference there. And preaching at the final service. So it won't be just me sitting on the back row.
Yeah. Yeah. So that would be in mid-February then?
Yeah, let me just find my diary. Yes, I'm just having to get quite serious. That's right, well, it's either Wednesday or the 11th.
That's actually, no, actually Wednesday is the 18th, right? Yeah.
No, I'm talking about February the 11th.
What?
The 11th of February is a Wednesday.
Right.
That's when I come back.
Yeah. Yep.
So,
right, and the following week is Ash Wednesday. That's what I was thinking.
That's right, yeah. Well, you see, I could talk to people on the Saturday. Are they going to have a group meeting? They won't be having a group meeting, will they? Until the following week. If it's Ash Wednesday, they won't have one on that week, on that day, will they?
I don't know. Probably not.
Anyway, I could talk to them at this time on the 21st of February, if that was any use.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll look for that, because they won't be starting out their conversation groups until after that.
What I meant, yeah. So shall we put down 3 o'clock as a provisional idea?
Okay, well, I'll propose that to them.
Yeah, but if I could have your notes to remind me what I just said, that would be really good.
Yeah. And when are you actually coming over to the U.S.? When are you flying over? Next week?
Yes, is it Saturday today? Yeah, next Saturday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, I could do that then. Yeah. I don't mind you sharing your notes with them beforehand, though, because that might, just get them thinking.
No, I'll do that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I love being with them. So if you can see a good excuse and anybody willing to pay for it, I'll come later in the year and meet with them.
Well, we'll look for an opportunity.
Yeah. Well, and Claire loves New York. She won't go many other places, but she likes New York. She doesn't like being the Duke of Edinburgh, walking one pace behind the Queen. You know.
No, she can walk next to you.
I know. But that's how she feels metaphorically. If she comes with me when I'm actually working all the time.
Yeah, I know.
Mm. How's Linda? She all right?
Yeah, she's doing okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're getting a little excited. We're going on a cruise next week, so.
Nice for some.
It'll be next.
We bought a house yesterday.
What's that?
We bought a house yesterday.
Oh. Why not?
Well, until it's been surveyed, we're not confirming it. But because this house is lovely, but it's too small. I mean, it's been a useful transition.
Uh-huh.
It was built about 1890. It's a lovely cottage, stone floor, open fireplace. But it's only really got one big bedroom and a small bedroom. And what we need to do really is to what we've got is a bigger terrace house, an end terrace house, about quarter of an hour's walk from here, which has views onto the moors on both sides. So it's just one row of houses next to a canal. And again, that was built about the same time, about 1890. But it's bigger. It's got 3 bedrooms, and we're going to spend money on opening up the roof. Assuming that we can sell our house and it all works out that way. But we've actually got a tame buyer who lives across the road who's interested in buying it without us going through all the stuff except solicitor.
That's good.
But the house needs an awful lot of doing up, so we're going to have to be patient for 2 or 3 years. It won't be like, it'll be, what's the word, house of character. Yeah.
Well, when you have it ready, let me know, because then I can plan my next trip over. So.
Well, we might end up moving sometime after Easter, I guess, because neither the guy who's buying our house nor the person selling the house is in any hurry, because the guy who's selling the house has 2 houses, so he can simply move into the other one.
Yeah.
And the other guy is rented, so he's very cool. He was brought up in the Shetland Islands, and life moves slowly there, you know.
Okay.
All right, Rich. Well, good to talk to you. And say if you do type that up, let me have it, and you'll check up on that day.
Right. Okay.
Do you know, by the way, how to change the password on Skype? There's something in the paper today saying you should keep on changing the password every so often. But I can't see how you do that.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I would probably look for, I'd probably go to the help menu and just, type that in there. Or just Google the phrase, change Skype password. Maybe something would come up that would tell you how to do that.
Good idea. Yeah. Oh, you're very clever. That's good.
Most everything I have a question about now, I just type in, I go to Google.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Does it choose your Christmas card?
Well, on my iPad, I go to Siri and I say, what does the fox say? And every time I do that, I get a different answer.
Okay.
And it's all like, watcha, 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 or chunga, 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 or stuff like that.
That's the metaphor for this journey then, the answer's different every time you ask the question.
That's right. Good metaphor, yeah.
Okay, Rich, take care. Love you both.
All righty. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.